Good morning. It's Sunday morning, January the 7th, and we're so super excited to be able to share with you our launch, virtual launch of You Prosper. If you would just give us a moment, Kim's got some people she wants to tag in, and we'll get the show or basically an introduction to You Prosper and what we are all about and how we're coming about with You Prosper and what is exactly does it mean. Okay, so just give us a moment. And if you don't get tagged from Kim, it's not something that we've done intentional. It's not something we've
Right.
done on purpose.
I'm just trying to tag as many as I know right off top just to get it started. And it filters from there. But you can always link back to the page, refer back to the page as well.
I'm about to take my glasses off so I can see.
Okay, I just did a few. Okay.
All right. So, uh, if you can't hear, please say that you can't hear. I need someone to really like tell me if the. Can you check and see Kim if the volume is there? Just turn yours up and see if the volume is there. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, Andrea says, everybody
Okay.
says yeah.
Great, great, great. So, hey, look. So, where did You Prosper come from, and how did we come into play with establishing You Prosper? I want to take you back to 2013, and a lot of you that have joined us from Married to Stay Married, or even my personal development page or Kim's personal development page, keep hearing us referring back to 2013 because that was a it was an exciting point in time in our life because things had started to turn, but it was also a very painful time in our life because things were happening. We didn't really understand why. We didn't understand what was really going on, and we really just needed some answers and we needed some clarity. One of the promises that we had made to God was that, hey, look, if you show us how to get to a certain level of achievement, that we would spare no expense at being able to share that experience and share those things that we did within our life in order to get where we were. At that point, that was one of those commitment things that you really don't understand what you're really saying. And so you bite into that. Your commitment of, I'll start a church or I'll start a ministry at that point is basically one of the commitments that we had. So there was a study that went on because we all know that when you go to the church, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of cliques, it's a lot of, you don't belong here or things of that nature that to me are not really Christian bound or is not Christian behavior. And these are things that I did not want to create in our church, if so to speak. So I studied and I went through and Kim studied and we were saying, hey, how is the church supposed to be established and what are we supposed to be doing? What's our responsibility to community in developing a church to where we can minimize or alleviate the drama, the mess, okay? And at that point in time, we discovered that the church was not necessarily the building, but the church is us. The church is the people. The church has nothing to do with anything as far as a ritual or practice, okay? So what happened is at that point in time, because we learned different, then we had to apply what we've learned at that point. And so therefore,
Yeah, and that's not saying we're perfect.
no,
It's not saying we're perfect. Now listen, and I understand exactly where he's going when he said that things are happening everywhere. And they are. There's no place you're going to go to there's not something happening.
right.
So we're not saying things where we're going is going to be perfect because it's not.
It's not, because guess what? People aren't perfect.
Right.
Okay, so when you put imperfect people in imperfect in even if it's a perfect situation, but you put imperfect people in it, then you're gonna have situation circumstances that happen. And so, with that being said, we kind of shied away from creating that organizational ministry because, we didn't want the drama, and we realized and we understood that the church is the people. Okay. And so, we transitioned into more or less being a more community based and being more directive toward who we help and who we mentored and things of that nature. Thus creating Married to Stay Married because we struggled in our marriage. I mean, when I say struggle, I mean it was really just more or less like it was a bad struggle. Okay, because we didn't understand what it was that what was our commitment to each other. We didn't understand that.
Right.
Okay, so in dealing with that, and then we started reading personal development books, and we started realizing that guess what, the principles that we found in personal development books are the same principles that are guess where in the Bible. Okay, so understanding that everyone is not on that level of attending a ritualistic worship service or whatever the situation and case may be, understanding that everybody may not be a believer of Christ, but understanding that guess what, the principles of Christianity do work if you apply them. So when we created Married to Stay Married, we wanted to make sure that we created the element in Married to Stay Married so that it was not a religious based scenario, so that we could help everybody. It doesn't regardless of what your faith and what your walk of life is. But as we started doing that, people in Married to Stay Married kept asking, hey, look, are you guys doing a Bible study anywhere? Are you guys doing any type of ministry? Are you pastors of church? Are you an elder? And some of you and some of the people in the community will say, hey, what's going on, preacher? What's going on, Elder Kim?
We'll say no, quick.
No, because that's not.
No.
We understand our obligation to the community, and it's not about a title. It's not about a status or anything of that nature. So therefore, we created You Prosper as the spiritual side for Married to Stay Married. And so what we've done is we've taken You Prosper, and You Prosper actually is going to be the foundation moving forward. Married to Stay Married will be a program that You Prosper offers, as well as the Husband's Huddle, which will be on tomorrow night at 8:30, and then also the Winning Wives, and they're having an event here at our home on the 27th. So that's just to give you a little bit of an underliner as into what You Prosper is really all about and where we're going and the effects and the influence that we want to have in the community. Again, we're not perfect, and I'm not gonna sit here in front of the camera, in front of you, in front of Kim or anybody else, and tell you that we're perfect. We're not perfect. Okay, I make mistakes. I might understand something a little different than what I should. I'm a reader. Okay, so at one given time, I could be reading anywhere between 4 and 7 books. That's just what I do. I look at reading just like most men look at watching football on Sundays. I'm rushing home to get a book. Okay, because I want to know. I want the information, and so as we've learned the information, I want to be able to share that information with you here, and that's what the creation of You Prosper is all about. Is to be able to give you the information on how we have set ourselves up for success, on how we have been able to overcome some obstacles or go around or through those obstacles, and it's merely by what we've learned as it relates to personal development and also the principles that have been laid forth in the Bible and not living below privilege. I think that a lot of times we take things in 2013, I had people tell me, hey, they gave me scriptures and things of that nature that allowed me to feel like it was okay to live a subpar life. It was okay to fail. Accept where you are because that's where God wants you to be. And so as I started understanding that, really, guess what? That's not where God wanted us to be. You think God wants us to struggle? No, He doesn't want us to struggle. And so, it's going to lead me to where we're going to go today in reference to our talk today, this morning. I want to really talk about God's will.
That's a good topic.
So, with that being said, and understanding God's will, let's talk about the word will, okay? Because will is what's really important. The will is what's really important. Because when we start talking about, the safest place, and I hear scriptures and things of that nature.
It's a song. Karen Clark Sheard has that song, "In the Will of God." That's a song. The safest place in the whole wide world is in the will of God.
Right. And so I'm not really versed on music. I was a musician. I still am. I think once you play music, you're just a musician. That's just what it is. Okay. I just don't listen to a lot of music and radio and things of that nature because that's just where I'm at. Okay. So there's some other things. There's some other talks that are out there that talks about being in the will. You go house shopping and you see the house that you want, and then you say, well, if it's in God's will. Right? So I think that this morning, in order to encourage you and to give you a foundation as into where we came from in reference to laying a foundation, to being able to step up to that next level and acquire that next level of success and be able to overcome obstacles, let's talk about what the meaning of will is. Not God's will, but just the meaning of will. And so I've got some notes here. So the will is basically the facility by which a person desires or initiates action. Okay? It's a deliberate exertion towards something or a restraint from something. Okay? So let's start thinking about will. Now, this is the definition of will today as it relates to us in our society today. The instruction or passing down of a notice of entitlement. That's what will, the word will is meant by today. So there's some biblical meanings of the word will, and there's some different types. And those of you that have a strong concordance, I'm going to give you some numbers to the word so that you can go look it up. And I'm going to encourage you guys not to take my word for it, okay? But do your research. I'm going to encourage you to do your research. I'm going to encourage you to open up your Bible, get you some research material, get you some other resources other than the Bible so you can understand what was actually meant. A big part of our problem is the understanding of the Bible. So we take the Bible, we take terminology, and we place it into today's society, and we give those words and things of that nature the same meaning that it has in today's society when, guess what, the Bible was translated. The Bible was written back in that era of time that, guess what, those words may mean something a little different. There's just like there and there. Sounds the same, spelled different, and have a different meaning. And so that's some of what's going on. So let's talk about will. Okay, we're going to talk about the biblical meaning of will, or the biblical types. The Thelo, and I'm going to spell it for you. Thelo. Thelo. If you have a strong concordance, the number on that is going to be 2309. Okay? And it's talking about having in mind an intent to desire, wish, or have pleasure. Okay? I want you to understand that this word is in the context of a verb. So it's an action. And it's important that you understand that what's a verb and what's a noun. The lema. It too has the same number in the Strong Concordance, 2309. So that tells you that basically those two are together. One side of it is the action, which is the verb, and the lema is actually the noun portion of it. And it says, what one wishes or has determined shall be done. Okay? What one wishes or has determined shall be done. Commands, precepts, choice, inclination, desire, pleasure. Okay? So now we have a will that actually serves as a person, place, or a thing. So this will be a thing.
But what does all that mean? What is all that? When you saying all of those boil down to, well, there, like you said, there's different types. You said there was different types. You said a verb
and the noun.
And the noun. So when you're saying, you're wanting to be or if it's you wanted to be in God's will, or if it's in God's will, you have to be mindful in
Which way?
which
So
which
are you talking about in a
you're talking about, the
verb
verb or the noun,
noun?
because it makes a big difference.
Okay.
I mean, we were reading last night, and not to get off the subject, but we were reading last night, and we were reading, and a exclamation point, not an exclamation point, but a comma made a big difference, and how the whole terminology of that scripture that we were reading, it made a big difference. So you have to be mindful, and that's why I said there's a difference when you're going from the verb to the noun of being in or the will of God.
Okay. And so now there's another verb in the same context, but however, it's called boulomai. Okay. And let me go back to thelema, and let me spell it for you. It's THELEMA. Okay. And again, it's in the Strong Concordance, it's 2309. Boulomai. It's a verb, and it's actually going to have the Strong Concordance number of 1014. Okay, so here we are. We're back to action again. All right, to will deliberately. So it's an intention again. Have a purpose. Be minded. Okay, of willing as an affection or to desire. Okay. So this content here, as far as the verb, and in the verb of the other word as well, which philo, is basically like wishing. Okay, I wish, and because it's a verb, I wish being a verb, the noun of the will just being what it is. Okay. Again, 1014, boulomai, then bouloma is in the Strong Concordance, it's going to be 1013. It also is a noun. Okay? It's the will, the counsel, and the purpose. So one of the things I want to really get to with the will, because we haven't even put it into the play of God's will. We're still talking about the will. Okay? Because we should have certain parts of will within ourselves in order to be able to get to that next level. How many times you said, well, I'll start my diet tomorrow, and tomorrow hasn't gotten here yet? It has, but your tomorrow hasn't gotten here yet.
So is the will a will or an intention?
Right.
Some wills
will or
can
wish.
be, can be an intention. I will start. I got all intention on starting. I am gonna start. All those words, and you come back and say, well, you can. It's just an example, like you tell the kids. I can tell the kids to start the laundry. I will. They got intentions on starting that laundry, but sometimes 7 times out of 10, it does for the life of me, it does not get started. So you can have that will. The will, I don't want to say it can mean having the intention, but it kind of sort of like, you know what I mean? Like
It's
links
a wish.
together.
So there's a difference in your will and your wish.
So is it a level of having a will? You think it's a level when you're having a will?
I think either you have a will or you don't. Because the thing of it is that if you don't have a will, then it's a wish.
Or an intention. What is intention?
So it's a wish.
It's a wish.
My intention.
Mm-hmm.
Your intentions and your realities can be different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, let's talk about and why is it important that we start with the will? Because I think that we need to understand the intent when we talk about God's will. Because is God wishing for us? And in certain scriptures in the Bible, his will is him wanting us to be a certain way. Okay? And then in certain situations in the Bible, his will goes back to the point of it being just, it's what it is. It shall be done, which is the lema. Okay? And so it's very important that we understand his will as the lema, and it's very intentional, or is very necessary for us to understand his will as in his desire for us.
So is that two separate ones?
It's very much so two separate ones. And so what happens a lot of times is that we look at God's will, and I'm going to go back to the other thing. Look at God's will as always being the thelema, which is basically his commands. Okay, it's what he's saying shall be done. So when you look at that situation, you understand that every time you see God's will in the Bible, is not necessarily talking about what he's saying shall be done.
So you're saying there's different types of will that's
Exactly.
is referring to in the Bible.
Yes. Okay. So when you start looking at that will, then you're able to get in line and say, is God wanting me this? Or is this God saying this is what's going to be done? And I'm gonna break that out.
But isn't his will always what he wants? I'm asking.
Okay, so when
that could be posed a question.
Right,
Somebody can have that question.
It
Isn't God's will? Isn't it that's what he always wants? He always wants his will for us. I mean, I'm just asking. That could be a question.
So in other words,
have.
don't you want? And let's break it down into. I want my child. I want my sons. I want my daughters to have the best that they could ever have. That's what I want. Okay, that's my will. Now, I can share with them my will, meaning what has to happen for them to acquire that. That's where and I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's where we're talking about. So now the will becomes the principle.
Okay, so you're saying that what you would have for your children, just like we all want. We want all the best for our kids. So what you're wanting for them, your will for your children, right? For our children, right? For our children. So the will that we want for our children, and then, I mean, I guess it refers back to, as well as that's what we want, but is that what
Okay.
God's will?
So understand.
So did
this.
I get ahead of the thing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
So
okay.
understand this. You want your home to be very peaceful.
Right.
That's your will.
Right.
That's your desire.
Yeah.
All right. You have a set of rules and regulations that you set in place to accomplish that. Okay. That's your will as well.
Right.
So you have one will that's a desiring, and then you have another will that's actually ruling.
So from what I desire to what it is. Is that what
To
you're
what
saying?
so what it is in the way that you're going to acquire that will.
Okay. From your desire.
Right.
Okay.
So there's two different sides of will there.
Okay.
Okay. I would or I will, meaning that my desire is for you to prosper. But in order for you to prosper, there's some rules and there's some things that you're going to have to follow in order to acquire that level of prosperity.
Got that. Okay.
So you got your will that God has a desire for you. And then you have another will that basically is the rules for being able to fulfill his desire for the results in your life. Does that make sense?
Okay, so from what we want, from what it is, right, to what we desire, yes?
Okay.
Okay, so, and you're saying God's will. Where does that, I'm just asking questions that could be out there.
All right, and I understand that, and that's what we're trying. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. So you're talking about two different.
Will of decree and will of command.
I'm sorry.
Sherelle Moore. Will of decree and will of command.
Okay, so to decree something is basically stating it right. You're wanting it. Okay, I decree that I'm going to be successful. But then again, you got to command it, which means that you're going to have something that goes into play to do that. And that's where you're talking about the two different wills. Okay.
So my question, does the word, you said decree and you said you got command, right?
Okay.
What is declare? Because you have some who say, I decree and I declare. Where does that fall in that?
Right. So it's a declaration.
Okay.
Think of it like the Declaration of Independence. It's in existence.
Okay.
It's your declaration.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And so your commandment is basically calling the declaration into play.
So is your commandment to declare?
So
I decree and declare?
so I wish, and then I use my will to fulfill my wish. It's the same thing.
But you said command.
It's the same thing.
So
Okay,
when you
so
command,
command
are
something.
you wishing
No,
or
you're willing.
you're willing? Okay. And you're what she say? Decree.
Decree.
Okay.
That's your wishing.
Okay. So where does declare come in at?
Declare is wishing.
Okay. Okay.
I declare that I'm gonna be victorious in today.
Okay.
All right.
So
And
your
so your
and your
declaration
command.
is basically saying this is what I'm wanting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
But you're gonna have to be able to apply some things in order to make that want come into existence.
Right.
The will, when we're talking about the will, now we're looking at a situation where, guess what? Our will is our want, but then there's a will that has to be applied to the want. There's a discipline that has to be applied to the want in order for it to become into fruition and to have the results.
Okay.
Okay. So what are we going to do? Let's talk about what is it we need to know about will. The will is consistent. Okay. Wills don't change as it relate to principles. Principles are principles. They're not going to change. The laws are not going to change. I want you guys to understand that when we're talking about the will, we're talking about the will related to God. It doesn't change. God established a will. He established the laws of nature, the laws of success. He created laws of finances. All these laws and things have already been established. They're not going to change. That particular will, is not changing. Okay. Now, how do we equate that into us? Our will, as it relate to our drive and our discipline, it should never waver. We should be gas pedal all the time. Okay.
But are we?
No.
No.
We give out of gas sometimes.
How do we come back?
You wake up and it has to hurt bad enough, but and
For
then,
you to keep going forward,
Right.
right? To continue to have that same. You said gas pedal, and it's the same thing I'm saying. The zeal, the
Right.
want, the desire that to have whatever did you say God's will or our will?
it is so really and truly. If you give me a minute, I'm going to show you how God's will and our will actually are the same.
Okay.
Okay, and basically our will and God's will, as far as desires, are the same. Okay, what happens is God's will, as it relates to the law and the principles and things of that nature, are different. However, the reason they're different is because that is the success plan that we have to apply to the will in order to get the result.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very defined. God's will, or the will, is very defined. There's no, when you have the will as it relates to the law, and we're talking about God's will, it's very defined. There's no gray area. Whatsoever a man soweth, so shall he reap. I'm sorry, that is the will of God. That's his will.
Right.
Okay?
And it doesn't change.
It doesn't change.
Right.
You throw something up in the air and it comes back down. We call it the law of gravity, but I'm sorry, it's God's will. That's just the way it is.
And it doesn't change.
It doesn't change. It's very consistent. Okay? Now, in order to be able to adhere or to be able to leverage God's will or the will, okay, you've got to qualify. Okay? So, and the reason I say you have to qualify is because the verb side of it says that you're going to have to do an action. In order for God's will to be manifested in your life, you've got to have that will within yourself. So if your desire right now is to go buy a home in 2018, and if you're not a homeowner, I encourage you to buy a home. Okay? But that's your will. And guess what? It's also God's will, basic desire. God gives us the desires, and we're going to go to that scripture in just a minute. He gives us the desire of your heart. So a lot of times you hear, well, if it's God's will, it will happen. It is God's will because you're talking about something that you desire.
Also, the question could be posed if that's something that we desire, but is what we desire God's will? Because listen, you can say it does says that He'll give us the desires of our heart if we delight ourselves in Him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we give ourselves, if that's a desire, but what some things that we desire, is that really in God's will? Because what we may think is what we really want may not be actually what we need.
Okay, so and this is why we're having this conversation.
Okay.
That question, the way you posed it, is church. That's what makes us, and that's one of the things that someone said to me that made me relax and say it's okay to fail, because it won't God's will for me to be successful. I've looked everywhere in the Bible. We can go through and there's I don't know. I want to say that a total like somewhere like 600 scriptures. Okay, where it talks about God's will, His will as a desire for us, and He never said anything about anything that we want that He would keep from us. He never said that. Don't you say a promise is a promise?
I always say it.
Okay, so understand this. So His will is basically that we have whatever it is that we want. Now, what happens is if we misuse that thing that we wanted, and then it turns out to be negative, that's on us.
Okay, so what if
So now it goes back to His will as it relates to the standard, the law.
Okay, so what if we desire, what if you made me lose my thought? Go ahead.
You lost it.
I lost.
Do we need to go on an Easter egg hunt and find your
because I
thought?
lost exactly what I was gonna say. You had said, go ahead. I may be able to come back up because it was just a question. It'll come back up. It'll come back up. It'll come back up.
Is it back?
No.
Okay.
Because you say it again, and I probably
Because I need you to come back to that.
No, I did.
So understand
I can't
this.
remember what I
So
was saying.
understand this. So understanding that God's law or God's will. Let's talk about God's will because that's what you said. Is it possible for us to obtain things? Okay, or is it possible for us to have a will for something that God doesn't have a will for us to have? That's what your question was. Can I get back to that thing? So understand this. So if whatever your heart's desire is, okay, as long as, and when we start talking about the will of God, we start talking about the kingdom of God. So understand this. What's your purpose for having that thing? So if you have the wrong intent, okay, then we're going to get back to the scripture because this is what's really going to trick you, and what has really tricked a lot of us. Because the thing of it is that our failure in 2013 didn't really come from a situation of us not knowing, but it came from a situation of us.
You got a comment from Sherelle Moore. She said, God's will of decree always comes to pass, but God's will of command can be broken.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we're in reference to, and that's what we're basically saying. That the will is what He desires from us. Okay, and then the principle. Okay, because I want you to understand that when we start talking about God's will, it's basically principles. His will His will is basically the principles of life. Okay, and if we break those principles, then we're not going to get the results that we're intending or that we desire, thus creating us a situation to say, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be, or I guess it wasn't God's will for me to have this. I guess it wasn't my desire, or it wasn't meant for this to even happen. Okay, so in order to be able to leverage God's will, there's a qualification, and the qualification basically is to be able to apply His law, which is His will. His will doesn't change. The laws don't change. Again, we talked about the gravity. We call it the law of gravity, but really and truly, it's basically God's will. Okay, we look at sowing a seed. If you sow an apple seed, you're not going to get an orange. And understand that's God's will. There's certain things that God has already shown, or He's already created the principles and the laws that you're going to have to follow in order to get the results which you desire of the desires that you have within yourself to acquire a certain level. Okay. Also, we talked about the in order to be able to get to that, apply that law, we're going to have, it's a standard.
Is this what your scripture?
Right. So do me a favor. So Kim, read that, and I want to say, it's Psalm 37:4 and 5. I'm gonna get Kim to read it because I can't read like out loud. I can read like.
But you said you want what? Which one? Just
so,
one?
No, do 37:4 and 5.
All right. So that says, well, let's start at 3.
Go ahead.
Because 3 says, "Trust in the Lord and do good, so that thou shalt thou dwell in the land, no, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thy heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass."
All right. So understand this. That's his will. Okay, that's the will. So you're going to have to follow the principles. You're going to have to follow the laws that have already been established in place. They're not going to fail you. Okay, when I'm talking about the natural laws, I'm talking about the natural principles. I'm talking about the law of life.
So are there spiritual laws?
So there are spiritual laws, but the spiritual law that we're going to be talking about in a later time is basically dealing with in the New Testament, because that's after the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, what we're commanded to do. Okay. So there's more that we're commanded to do, but guess what? We got to start with the basics and understand what will we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times the will that we're in reference to really is more or less God's wish, not his actual practicality.
But does the word wish seem so...
It seems light, doesn't it?
It seems so...
vague.
So, that's not enough. When you say God's wish, that's just like...
So we're
it will, or it can, or if I... that sounds weak when you say...
So we are in...
wish and will. You know what I mean?
Right. We're in a free will society.
Right.
Okay. Being in a free will society is what creates God's will in the form of a wish.
It just sounds weak.
It does. I'm
not saying it is wrong. It just sounds weak. It sounds like...
does.
Because you say that, God has all power. God had this... all this transpires. Then you say God's wish. And it's like... It's like feathery.
Right.
You know
so
what I mean?
in other words, so God's desire. So again, this is just like us dealing with our kids.
Right.
I want you to get good grades.
Right.
I want you to do this. But in order for you to get good grades, you're going to have to come home. You're going to have to cut the Xbox off. You're going to have to cut the TV off. And you're going to have to study.
Right.
So if you do those things, then you'll fulfill...
You'll get the results that you want. Right.
So
it
understand.
Just sounds so featherweight.
It does. It's like so. It's like God, you're
nonchalant.
I have the best wishes for you.
Yeah, that sounds so.
And it's almost
so
like
easy going.
It's like I have the best wishes for you, and good luck.
Yeah,
you
just
know
like,
what I'm saying.
It just sounds different when you say it like that. Oh, I wish. You know what I mean? You can say it's different when you say Anthony, when I say best wishes to you, right? Mm-hmm. Then me come back and say, oh, you're going to make it. You know what I mean?
And so,
or good luck.
So,
I mean, I'm not knocking those who say that. I'm
God
just saying.
wants, in the scripture, he wants us to have a certain life.
Right.
But he also wants us to follow a certain path to that life.
Right.
He also understands that some of us are not going to follow that path.
Right.
Okay, and fortunately enough, we understand that if we don't follow that path, then we can't expect to get those results.
The path, which is
that's the will, the principles, and things of that nature.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that.
So you're fine.
It just sounds like wish,
yeah, it's very light, and so
it's almost like you want to take that word wish. I wish. I don't know, but anyway, go ahead. I never really looked at it like that until you till you actually say it, and you keep saying it, and you keep
And it
hearing
scares
it.
you.
It's like
because
God's wish.
and here again, and this is why I say, and some people disagree with me on this, and I'm not trying to be confrontational this morning, but some people would say God told me, and I say that God really didn't tell you. What happened is you recall something that you've already read, something that you've already gone through and witnessed, and you line that up to that existing thing. There's nothing new under the sun. God's will is God's will. It's the rules, the laws, and that's done.
That's pretty much to each.
It's not, because here again,
To each his own, though, because this.
if you want to believe that, that's fine. That's why we have the will situation. So in other words, if God says that his desire for you, this is what my wish is for you, it goes back to Adam and Eve. Because the thing of it is that the knowledge, they took of the fruit of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. They became conscious. They became aware and able to make decisions. That's what gave us free will. So if we have a free will society, then you cannot expect God to say, you got to do this. He's already put that in place with his will. That was already done with his will. So he's already spoken his will. He's already given us his laws.
Okay, that God speaking, that's another subject.
Let's
stay on. Let's go back on the will, because
when you start getting there,
you got
it goes,
branch off and
all right.
branch off.
So
let's go back
to
the
here.
will.
Look, we're gonna tie it up and whatnot, and I hope that this really enlightens some of you. I hope that you understand that what the difference in the wheels are, because the wheel is actually going to be what determines the content of what you're reading and what you're studying. Okay, so you need to understand that if it is God giving you or telling you that the will is the principles and the things that you're obligated to do. And we'll talk more about those next week. We'll start talking about the different wills and we'll start bringing those things out in the Bible so that you can see what the differences are and how you can apply this to your life.
But question, is your will supposed to be God's will?
So your will...
Is your will God's will?
Which will are you talking about?
Which will should be God's will? How should your will match up with God's will?
Okay, so understand...
Because our desires are supposed to be his desires, right? I mean,
God's,
I'm just
okay,
asking
so
a question.
I understand that. So your desire, okay, and God's desire are the same.
So
or
what
should be the same.
Right, should be. So what God desires for me is what I should be desiring for myself.
God gives you the desires of your heart. You just read that. For
Okay.
those that delight themselves in him. For those that follow his will.
So I guess that's breaking it back down to saying what I desire. If that's what I desire, then
You're able to get it. You're able to get it.
Is it always what God desires?
Yes. Because he said he give you the desires of your heart. Now, understand this. Now, if you have an evil desire, like, I wish that thing right there would do this to this person. That's not. So now, here again, that's our ill will, and your ill will and God's will are not going to...
Yeah, of course, that's not right. I'm not going to ask for something bad to happen to somebody.
Right.
No, naturally, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I'm just proposing a question because I've heard this so many times before. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm saying. I am, and please don't think I'm being confrontational. I'm just putting it out there because you hear so much, and you want to know the right, what we think is right, or what we think. I'm just putting it out there.
It's what's worked for us.
So what I'm saying is, okay, you say,
my end.
You know what, God, I desire this. Let's just put it out there. 5 and 3, a home, right? I said 5 bedroom, 5 and 3, 5 bedroom, 3 bath. Okay, that's what I desire. Okay, that's what I want. That's my desire. And so when we say that's what I desire, is you have to come back and say, but then the question will be posed, because I've heard it before. But God, is that what you want from me?
Yes.
Is that what you want from me?
Yes, that is what he wants for you. If you want it, he wants you to have it.
Okay, I'm just putting it out there because
you want a Bentley.
That's
he wants you to have it.
That's what people. Okay, and then you got to be practical. Is that that's when it comes back? Is that something I can afford?
Okay, now, so we're
right. You see what I'm saying?
That's a whole nother subject.
No,
it is another subject, but understand this. It's not about is that what I can afford. if that's your desire, okay, then you need to tap into the principles of God and
So
then
that
let
way you can obtain that
Bang.
5 and 3 that you desire, and then it becomes, well, then it's already God's desire. Is that what?
right. So in other words, God desires you to have the desires of your heart. Now, what you have to do is you have to go back to His will and obtain the things that you need to obtain in His will. You're gonna have to do the things. A man that doesn't work don't eat. Guess what? That's a God's
So
will.
the desire and the will are two different things. Did we establish that?
The desire and the will, yes,
Are two different
Yes.
things. Okay. Because you said
but it's a
what-
type. So desire is a type of will.
Right. Okay.
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 But the actual will is basically the commandment and the principles and the laws that you're going to have to follow in order to fulfill your desires and your wants.
Okay. 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 I was just.
It's
Great
the rule of
morning.
the game.
Great morning, Tiffany.
What up with you? Hey, look. So it's the
Okay.
rule. So you look at God's will as the rules to the game.
Okay.
You're going to have to play by the rules. You're going to have to follow the natural laws of success. You're going to have to follow the natural laws of life
In order to obtain.
to obtain the desires of your heart, which God wants you to have. Because if God didn't want you to have it, He would have never created the pathway for us to be able to follow and to be able to leverage the information that we need in order to get to that level.
Okay. I'm just asking. I'm not being confrontational.
Yes, you are.
I'm
You're
just
being
saying-
comfortable. Let's
No,
fight.
I'm just
No, I'm
saying
joking.
because all these questions have been posed and they've been asked, and I've been, heard. And just because you overhear something, you don't respond. But I'm just saying those questions are out there that people want to know. So that's why I'm saying examples on what is. Tim, good morning, Tim. What is being actually said and the questions that could come at hand. So same questions that I've heard could be your question.
Right.
So that's why I'm bringing,
And
trying
we're-
to bring
and-
an understanding, a clear understanding on, because everybody don't understand things in the same way. Everybody's not on the same. You can acquire the level of
Right.
understanding. You can always do that. But to understand, because you could say, some people can say these big, long, extremist words, and it mean the same thing you're saying. It's just that you be like,
What's this?
you become intimidated by that words.
Right.
Like
And
the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Can you spell it?
Good God from Zion.
Can you spell it?
No.
Okay,
You can
so-
start with super, but I'm just saying that word intimidates you. But whatever that word means could be the same word as, just say if it meant good. You'd be like, darn, you said all that just to say
good.
good? Yeah. So
So-
that's what I'm asking.
So look, and we're gonna wrap up because I don't want to hold your patience long, and what I want to do is I want to invite you guys to go to www.u, which is the letter U, okay, prosper prosper.life, okay. I'm gonna actually take this video. We're gonna load it up to our web page. And basically, you're going to be able to ask questions in reference to what was taught here today, what was said. If you have questions, how do we come to this information? Is there some more resources that you can dig into to get this information? For the life of me, I just don't want you guys to be misled. I don't want someone to be in that 2013 experience where I accepted and agreed to the fact that I was failing. And it was okay
Because of the word will.
Because it's not God's will for you to do that right now. Well, when is it going to be God's will? Okay, so you have to understand that. Guess what? God's will has to do all with us. We're responsible for the outcome of God's will. He said He would give us the desires of our heart. Okay.
If we delight ourselves in
Him. So now it goes back to being able to leverage and put in play those principles, those laws, which we call the will. Okay? So think of it like this. Your father is a billionaire. And he writes out a will. He writes a will out.
Give me some of that.
Yeah, you get your bologna sandwich with no bread. Bread's extra. But he writes out a will and he says, in order for you to be able to acquire his wealth, you're gonna have to do this.
That's a good example because listen, I watch what is the channel? Hallmark. and I watched a Princess thing, right? Seriously, no, and I watched the Princess thing. It was some Princess movie that it was Christmas movie.
Thank you, Tim.
And long story short, in the Princess movie, she was getting an inheritance, right, from her father, right, and so it had been passed down. But in order for her to get this inheritance, she had to follow through these guidelines in order to obtain this wealth that she wanted, right? So I remember one thing she had to do, she had to be married, right? She had to be married, and within a certain amount of period, you know what? It was a time frame from the time that she had to be married before she turned the age of 25 years old. That was the moral of the story.
Wow.
Before she was 25, in order to inherit all of these things that he had left for her, she had to follow by that. That was the biggest rule, to be married by 25. She had already had her education. She had already pursued it, got her education in college. It was that. It was just small little things. He had joked about her, about being more happy, more this and that. But her biggest thing was being married by she was 25. But the whole thing was it. Guess what? She hadn't even been dating anybody.
Oh, she could have bought a husband.
Yeah, she hadn't even been dating anybody.
Hey, look, you married me, I get your boat. You know what I'm
So she
saying?
hadn't even been dating anybody. But I thought about that when you brought that up. That was just like, following these rules in order to get this.
Okay.
At the end.
So look. So here again, family. We're gonna break it in. We love you guys. Again, go to youprosper.life and just peruse through the pages, and you'll see where we're actually gonna have the video posted.
And like and share it.
Yes, please
Share it. Share
And-
it. Keep it going.
And the thing of it is, and next week, what we're going to be talking about next week, we're still going to be on the wheel, because I want to show you what the wheel looks like. What is exactly the wheel? What are the things? What are the commandments? For God's will. What is it that we have to do? Okay, because I think that now that we've established the wheel, one side of it that God's will is basically what He desires, and it's not something that He's going to put into play, but it's His desire. Right?
So is it automatic? That's a question.
No, it's not automatic. God's desire is not automatic.
No,
So-
that's what I'm asking.
right.
I'm posing a question.
So-
Is it automatic?
So go onto our webpage, or if you're here on the You Prosper page on Facebook, if you got a question or something with this week's information, encouraging moment, empowering moment, if you have a question or a comment that you want addressed, just put it on the Facebook page, or go to our website, click on there. You can rewatch the video there, slow it down, whatever you got to do.
And bring us back the questions.
And bring it back.
We love feedback.
and-
We love feedback. We want to know exactly what questions you may have, or if you know someone else that's got a question or whatever. But we love feedback. We love to hear from you. We love to hear from the questions from you. We may not have the exact answer, but guess what?
Give me time.
We'll find it. We'll
Give me
find an
time.
answer.
Give me time.
And so
I'll find it.
that's an important thing. That's really important for us. Feedback is very important.
Right. So I don't want this to be like the typical setting that what I say is the gospel. I guess what? I make mistakes. I understand things wrong. This is more of a dialogue of learning for everybody. Everybody.
Yeah. Everybody.
Not perfect.
Everybody.
And guess what? You have an opportunity to share your side and to share your view. But I am going to ask you, when you share your view, I'm going to ask you where'd you get it from. I'm going to ask you to break it down for me.
Have some
You're going to have some references. So that's just how I am.
We're learning together.
We're
in
learning
the midst
together.
of that.
You're right.
We're learning together. And then listen, if there's a hot tamale subject that you think that we should
Talk about.
let's get it. Let's do it.
And so, we're not the only ones. Bernard and Emily Carter out of Fayetteville, they actually have the You Prosper in Fayetteville, along with the Married to Stay Married in Fayetteville. So, guess what? If we don't have it, they might have it, and we might have to come together and get it. You'll be seeing some posts from them. They'll be posting in response to a lot of the questions that you may have. So we're just doing some great, wonderful things, and just, hey, look, we're just trying
Reaching
to do,
out.
yeah, we're just trying to do what it is that's
And
gonna
sharing.
that's gonna help everybody get to that next level.
Yep.
I don't want it to be a situation. They say it's a lonely place at the top, right? But guess why it's lonely? Because there's a very few people that are willing to travel the distance and to do the things that they have to do in order to get there. So guess what? I don't want to be lonely at the top. I want you guys to be able to come along with us. I want you to be able to experience some successes in life. I want you to have, you know, I guess I'm sounding like God now. It's my will that you. It's my wish.
Say that?
It's my
Did you
will.
say,
I
well,
want
no.
you.
Yeah,
Look,
of course. We
I
all
want you
we
to be
want,
there.
our desire for you.
It's right. Exactly. That's
Our,
our
that's
will.
our will, our desire for you to have your desires.
That's
is that
right.
Is
That's
that put
our
it right?
will.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the
That's
will.
that's what it is.
Right.
Our desires. Sorry.
And so allow us to help you get to that place and allow us to show you what God's will actually is. Okay? So we love you guys and
Love you, and we thank all of you that were able to tune in, and those that are tuned in later, still same information, same thing. You got it. Just some got it firsthand, some didn't. It doesn't
Right.
matter as long as
It
you
doesn't
got
matter.
it. It doesn't matter. So we thank you in advance. We thank you for tuning in, for now, later, whenever. We thank you for even the thought of coming in. You
And
know,
sh-
stopping
yeah.
through and seeing it. Thank you for
And
the
waving your
shares.
hand, yeah.
Anybody who said hello, anyone said hello to anybody, we thank each and every person, because it's not about us. It's nothing. We can't do anything. We can share.
Right.
Nothing like sharing information, because we want to get. Well, we're still going too, right? We're still trying to get our desires.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just messed the camera up.
He just messed the camera up.
Yeah.
He
There
just
it
messed
is.
it up, but it's okay.
I'm back.
But anyway,
We're
so we're just wanting to thank everybody, because it means a lot. Thanks for all the encouragement, everything that's being said. Tagged again. We love each and every one of you, and there's nothing you could do about it. Stay tuned.
Please share the page.
Everybody share.
Yeah, share the page because
Just share.
after the next couple of weeks, then the only place that you're going to be able to catch the broadcast or the podcast is either going to be on our webpage, or it's going to be on the You Prosper Facebook page, or you can catch it on our live stream channel, which is www.livestream.com/You Prosper. Okay.
Yep.
So
Great launching.
great. High five.
High five.
High five to y'all. All right. Love you guys.
Love
and
you.
Have a great day.
Hearts. Enjoy the
All
rest
right.
of your day. Stay tuned.
All right. Hit us up.
Bye.